year has gone by. Where has the time gone?
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Once more unto the bridge, dear friends.
Again and again until we're both dead.
There's only like 12 stories. They change around little details, but they're all pretty much the same.
Deja vu. Something very familiar about it.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, Movie Reviews, Connections in Mind. Well, here we are in the final hours of 2024. It's time to take a look back at the year that was in movies and TV, to see what was best, what was worst, and overall just see where we stand heading into the new year. I like to do a best and worst and just okay sliding scale because realistically, we are not in a black and white world as far as movies goes. There are some cases where nuance does apply. So I apply the bottom of the barrel and then the large chunk of just okay and then the best, all on a sliding scale. And once I run through all that, I'll give you a preview as to what you can expect from this channel going into 2025. First things first, let's get into some of the worst of 2024. Now, keeping in mind, I'm not going to be covering everything in 2024. This is just the ones that I saw and I can comment on. And worst of the worst, bottom of the barrel, from my point of view, is a movie that I completely forgot I saw until I saw a couple of other YouTube channels doing their best and worst of the year. And then the memories just came flooding back to me. It's like, oh yeah, that was a waste of an hour and a half that I will never get back. And that was Borderlands. That is a case study of a movie that has been in development hell for far too long. And it just needed to just admit defeat at a certain point. Instead, they just decided to release an obviously unfinished product and a chopped to oblivion product, and the world is a worse place because of it. Next up is Halo Season 2. I was not a huge fan of the Halo Season 1. I liked it just enough. Halo Season 2, I had to remind myself that I even reviewed it this year. That's how forgettably and how bad this series was. And it could have been excellent, especially considering, again, we've been waiting for a Halo series for so long. Next up is Madame Web, and again, I cut the Sony Spider-Verse villain movies a lot of slack, a lot more slack than I think a lot of other people do, but I gotta admit, this one was boring and nonsensical, and for my money, I can't even watch it as a so bad it's good movie. It's just one where it's like, yeah, I saw it. I have no intention of ever seeing it again. This is the bottom of the barrel. And next up is Joker Folie à Deux. Now, I'm putting this in the worst category. This could easily have been the bottom of the just okay pile because I do have to respect a big swing when I see it. It was a big swing. It was a swing, swing around the base and fall flat on your face kind of big swing, but a big swing nonetheless. And, what little props there are, I give to that, but it is still one of the worst movies of 2024. So, for my money, those are the worst of the year. Now we're getting into the large chunk of just okay. And starting at the bottom of the sliding scale of just okay, working our way up, is Kraven the Hunter. Again, I cut the Sony Marvel the MCU Spider-Verse villain movies a lot of slack, and this is one where I saw it and I had just enough of a good time, cleared the very low bar that I had going into it to say, it's okay. I don't intend to see it ever again purposefully, but it did what I thought it was going to do, and that's enough. So, there's that. Next up is Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. I didn't have high hopes for this, but I had higher hopes. Let's put it that way, because I enjoy Lord of the Rings, and even in animated form, I enjoy the animated Bakshi movie, the two Rankin Bass Lord of the Rings movies. I was hoping something along those lines, and there's interesting things to be said about this movie, but it is definitely near the bottom tier of the just okay scale. Next up is Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. I was a pretty respectable fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I was hoping for big things to come with the sequel from where we left off with that movie, and we got big things-ish, but there was just so much going on, and so many plot threads to put into one movie that it really felt like it was juggling too much, and the movie is the worse off because of it. Next up is Argylle. Again, another movie that I had to remember that I had forgotten not even reviewed, but I will say it's Matthew Vaughn. There's some Matthew Vaughn action scenes that you can enjoy in this, and I think that this is one where there's enough here that you can watch it in the background and have a good time. Let's put it that way. Next up is Y2K. Y2K, again, I had high hopes just based on the premise, and they fulfilled that in one scene and nowhere else in the rest of the movie. And that is a huge shame, in my opinion. But again, maybe that's just me. Your results may differ. I'm putting this in the lower half of the just okay tier. Next is Venom: The Last Dance. Again, I was a pretty big fan of the original Venom. I liked Venom: Let There Be Carnage enough, and just like that, I liked Venom: The Last Dance enough. There's some fun things about this. There's interesting concepts to be had, but again, it feels like there was a little bit too much. It felt like something was a little bit too rushed. This is one of those movies that I feel it was affected by the SAG-AFTRA strike, and you can kind of see that in the finished product. So again, there could have been a better product that we got instead of this, but I liked it just enough. Next up is The Fall Guy. Again, I had no preconceived notions going into this movie, and I thought, going into it, there were some decent action scenes. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt do have some decent chemistry together, but overall, I feel like I was left the theater going, that's nice. I don't feel like I'm going to buy that on Blu-ray. That's, at this point in the just okay scale, that's kind of my criteria of movies that are landing in the just okay scale. I'm not going to buy Fall Guy on Blu-ray. Similarly, I'm not going to buy Transformers 1 on Blu-ray, even though it is a decent story. I liked what they were doing with this. I think for what it was a pretty decent Transformers story. A lot better than some of the other live-action Transformers movies that we've gotten recently. And, I think, again, it was okay. It probably deserved more than what it got in the box office. But I hope people discover it on streaming, Paramount Plus, or wherever it ends up, and you give it the love it deserves in that regard. But for me, it was just okay. Next up is on the TV scale we're probably around the midpoint of the just okay scale, and this is where I feel like I need to put Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power Season 2 on this scale. And like I said, I was optimistic going into Season 2 from Season 1 of Rings of Power, and there's some good things to be had there. We got some great expansion of lore, but I'm really tired of who is this person? Who is this person? Where, it's almost like an extended version of the last, 5-6 minutes of Rogue One, where everyone's trying to where's this character? This character needs to get to their starting point in the beginning of Rogue One. Or this character and this character, same thing. Sauron's got to get to this position heading into Fellowship of the Ring, and Galadriel and Elrond need to get to these positions into beginning of Fellowship of the Ring, and it's a lot of that. And I feel like you don't necessarily need all that. You can explore other worlds in Middle Earth at this point. So that's why I put it pretty much in the middle of the just okay sliding scale for my money. Next, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm a big fan of the reboot trilogy of Planet of the Apes movie. You got Rise, you got War, and you got Rise, Dawn, and War of the Planet of the Apes. And then we got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is a continuation of that, about 7 years after after War, and or when War released, but in real time, a couple hundred years have gone timeline wise, and it's interesting to see where the lore is picking up from that perspective, but lacking any of the characters that we were invested in that trilogy. It feels like it's at this point it's just another Apes movie, and it's a good Apes movie, but it's not necessarily a great Apes movie. Let's put it that way. Next, we have Marvel's What If Season 3. I'll leave my full thoughts to my review and video released in and around this time, but I will say this is one where I really wish that this series would just where its strength lies is just being an anthology series where you say, like, hey, here's these two characters, or this one character, two characters, three characters. Let's just throw them into this random scenario and let's see what happens. Great. I don't need them to be forced into an overarching story for each season. It's like that's totally unnecessary. I'm fine leaving it as a completely separate anthology collection and being like, all right, what if Shang-Chi is suddenly in the Old West? Cool, let's see what happens there. And not like, oh well, the Watcher is in trouble and the multiverse is in peril yet again. I don't need that, at least from my perspective. So overall, I'd say that was okay. Next is Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Again, I'm a big fan of Godzilla. I like where the MonsterVerse is going. I think we're getting to that point. If you wanted more monster action, you got it in this movie, and I was satisfied. But it was I prefer the other MonsterVerse movies in this movie over this one. So that's why I put it here on the sliding scale of just okay. Next is Star Trek Discovery Season 5. Another decent season with the crew of Discovery. Painfully obvious that they had to cram in that series finale epilogue at the very end of the season, and it doesn't really work. But as the season goes, I think it's better than some of the other seasons of Discovery. But overall, I'd say it's just okay, for my money at least. Next is Kung Fu Panda 4. I like Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2. I was not the biggest fan of 3, and with 4, I'm, again, not the biggest fan of it. It seems like, especially when they do the pointed thing of, oh, well, all the characters that, with all these other famous voice actors, they're all doing their other things. Let's just focus on Poe and Awkwafina's character. It's like, cool, but, that gets annoying after a while, in my opinion. So that's where I'd place Kung Fu Panda 4 on the just okay scale. Next is a movie that I have not done a review on, but I saw this holiday season, and it's Carry On Netflix. It is very much Die Hard 2 modernized, let's say, but for a streaming released movie where, content means, basically just fulfill the algorithm in the most bland ways possible. I would say this is probably one of the better direct-to-streaming movies that we've gotten in a while. Not the best, not nearly the best, but as from this goes, I would say this was a pretty fun. It was engaging enough for me from this movie, for my money anyway. Next is Moana 2. Again, great to see Moana. Great to see Maui doing their thing. Feels very much like a Disney Plus series that got jerry-rigged into a theatrical release. Let's just put it that way. Next is Gladiator 2. Again, I really like the original Gladiator. I don't see it as necessarily a masterpiece. I rewatched it prior to seeing Gladiator 2, and I wish they did some different creative choices with Gladiator 2 and certain characters. See my review on specifics on that. But it did feel like a pretty spectacular action movie, and that's really what I was wanting going into this movie. So there's that. Next up is Alien Romulus. I was skeptical about this going into it because, Alien Covenant was fine, but a little bit of a letdown. I was not, completely, insulted by Prometheus, but I understand why a lot of people were. And I feel like this movie was a bit of a direct return to form for the first half, maybe 2/3, and then the last third definitely devolved into, a whole bunch of member berries and questionable choices, in my opinion, and it ended on a bad note, in my opinion, so that did drag it down a bit, but it does put it in the upper tier of the just okay sliding scale, for my money at least. Next is Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5. I'm a fan of Lower Decks. I'm a fan of Star Trek. I love the references that they make. I've never seen Lower Decks as fantastic Star Trek by any means, but it's enjoyable, it's funny, and it is definitely in the upper tier of just okay for me. And topping out the just okay scale, let's say just this side of the, just outside of the best of the year for me, is Beetlejuice. There's a lot of fun to be had here. Michael Keaton is amazing as Beetlejuice. We get more of him. They balance him out just enough for my money, and great practical effects. But again, it suffers from the fact that this has been long in gestation. It's juggling so many side plots. It feels like two different scripts that were just mashed together, and it doesn't necessarily gel. But overall, I had a pretty good time. So that's where we top out on the just okay scale. Now let's move right into the best of the year, and this might be controversial to some, but I'm putting it just this could have easily been in the top of the just okay, but I'm putting it just inside the best of the year for my money, and that's Agatha All Along. I was pleasantly surprised with this series. I was honestly, approaching this not wanting to review it. I was thinking it's just going to be, Marvel's releasing a series. It's obligation viewing at this point. But they smartly worked with what they had, and the Down the Witch's Road song is insanely catchy, maybe because they play it so many freaking times. But I was pleasantly surprised. It was a pretty darn good time. And if they do put out a season 2, I would not mind seeing that. Let's leave it at that. That was a decent praise to be had there. So that's where I put it in the very bottom best of the year for me. Next is Inside Out 2. Inside Out was a pretty good, pretty awesome movie. Inside Out 2, while it doesn't reach quite the highs of Inside Out, does do a pretty dang good job of continuing the story of Riley and the emotions, continuing the complexity And so I would say that is a mission accomplished for a Pixar sequel on that front. Next is Deadpool and Wolverine. I would say, great action scenes. Maybe not the best Deadpool movie of the trilogy. I'm still partial to the first one. But this was, it accomplished this mission of, of integrating Deadpool into the MCU as best it can. And, paying homage to the Fox Marvel properties as best it could. And, it did a pretty good job. Although, rewatchability, I think, is going to diminish as time goes on. I'm not sure how often I'm going to be putting it back in for rewatch as the years go by. Next is a movie that I have not done a review of, but I highly recommend people see if you have not already. And don't just rent it, buy it if you enjoyed it, because this is a movie that was made on low budgets. Independent filmmakers. This is how they break through the Hollywood elite into the mainstream, and that is the movie Hundreds of Beavers. Hundreds of Beavers is freaking hilarious. If you enjoy, Bugs Bunny, Tom and Jerry, Three Stooges, classic slapstick, you're going to enjoy this. It's a, mostly silent, black and white movie. Don't let that put you off. It is hysterical. Maybe it goes on slightly too long by the end, but overall, it's just weird enough, and it's just crazy enough to be an incredibly good time. I'm not going to reveal anything else about this. All you need to know, Hundreds of Beavers, look it up on Amazon. I believe that's where it's streaming. And I think if you watch the trailer and are intrigued, definitely go check it out. You will not be disappointed. Next up is Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. This did not deserve to bomb at the box office, but I will say it maybe had too big a task to try and succeed. Mad Max Fury Road. It's not as good as Mad Max Fury Road, let's put it that way. But it is a very good action movie from George Miller, and it is worthy of your time just to see the action scenes in their entirety and on the biggest screen that you can find. Next is Dune Part 2. Enjoyed the first Dune well enough, even though it did feel like half a movie. And this is a pretty decent conclusion to the first Dune movie, and I'm very excited to see how they do Children of Dune. I even bought the book series to keep up with the events going into this. I hadn't read the books prior to the release of Dune Part 1, and this got me hooked onto that. So if a movie adaptation of a book series makes you go and seek out the books, then you know that's doing something right. Let's put it that way. And finally, my favorite of the year, maybe not the best of the year, but my personal best of the year is Twisters. This was just a fun movie that, it's a indirect sequel to a movie from the 90s that didn't need a sequel, but the cast is charming. I'm not a fan of country music normally, but the soundtrack is pretty darn catchy, and it's worked in well. And the tornadoes look fantastic. It was shot on film, so it looks great all around. This is, for my money, the best movie of 2024. So now that we've reviewed all of the movies that are the best, the worst, and just okay in 2024. Now let's take a brief look into what you can expect for me to review in 2025. Keeping in mind, this schedule is, release dates are in flux often, and I may have to remove a movie, or I may add a movie that I find out later on. So all these dates and movies are subject to change throughout the year, but for right now, you can look out for my reviews of movies in 2025, starting with Wolfman in January 17th, followed by Star Trek Section 31, January 24th, Captain America Brave New World is February 14th, The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, February 28th, Mickey 17, April 18th, Thunderbolts, May 2nd, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, May 23rd, Karate Kid Legends, May 30th, From the World of John Wick, Ballerina, June 6th, Jurassic World Rebirth, July 2nd, Superman, July 11th, Fantastic Four, First Steps, July 25th, The Naked Gun, August 1st, Freakier Friday, August 8th, Tron Ares, October 10th, Mortal Kombat 2, October 24th, Predator Badlands, November 7th, Now You See Me 3, November 14th, Zootopia 2, November 26th, and Avatar Fire and Ash, December 19th. And as far as TV goes, again, schedules are always in flux, and we don't have dates for all of them, but hopefully I'll be doing reviews of these series, including Daredevil Born Again, March 5th, Andor Season 2, April 22nd, Ironheart, June 24th, Alien Earth, Summer 2025, Marvel Zombies, October 2025, and Stranger Things Season 5, to be announced 2025, and Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, to be announced 2025. That's what you had to look forward to, and that was also the look back at the year that was. I sincerely thank those who took the time out of your day to watch my content on YouTube. I may not have the biggest following, but those that do watch, I appreciate wholeheartedly, and I hope you had a good time. I'm looking. Be sure to look for some new changes to the channel coming out in the year 2025. I think it's time for some freshening up on this channel, and hopefully you have hopefully had a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, and may your 2025 be full of success and happiness. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.